Welcome back to the Dopesick Show you won't get sick of. I'm Spencer, and this is Sasha. Spent most of my 20s in federal prison, but have been off heroin since April 9, 2010. Got a lot of stories about the dumb stuff I did to get put in prison. I've also got a lot of stories about the crazy stuff that actually happened when I was in prison. And God forbid you end up in prison. I want to make some of the same mistakes I made, so figuring the mic out. The noise that you hear in the background, the noise that you don't hear now, where I spent that time in solitary, when it was loud, it was loud. People screamed, kicked the door all day, but when it was quiet, it was so quiet it hurt your ears. So the sound of like complete silence just puts me in a dang near panic attack, but it's something I'm adjusting to. You know, I always had to have that background noise since I've been out. So that's what that noise was in the previous videos. I guess this one's picking it up a little better than the last one. But anyway, so I went to the clinic, the Methadone clinic, as a business plan. Now, I know it does help people, and if you do it correctly, if you have the intent to do it correctly, it absolutely can help save lives. At that point, a connection of mine had been busted. There wasn't a whole lot of stuff going on, and I figured, well, they give take-homes. So I started going there. Well, that brilliant idea got me addicted to methadone. Go figure. Now, as I went there and I sat, sometimes you'd have to sit there when you had to do a drug test or whatever, which, other clinics, I'm sure they're run much better, but the one where I'm at, they don't check the temperature, anything. And it's kind of a weird concept because people actually use the take-home bottles as a storage place for someone else's urine to bring in with them to use as a fake drug test. At my little house that I've got in Radford, we had to evict these people. That was a crazy story, too. They kept squatting in this house for like a year. And then we took them to court, and for some reason they got like a bond to try to fight us over us kicking them out over not paying rent for a year. Well, the judge gave us the bond, which was like, I think it was like $20,000. Yeah, it was $20,000. $20,000. The judge awarded us that bond that they put up, which is the stupidest thing ever did. But anyway, when we were cleaning out the house, I saw these bottles. They completely wrecked it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that still has to be fixed. They did a number on it, but I saw these bottles, and I was like, that's a methadone clinic bottle. And I went over, saw, the letters on it, everything else. I'm like, that don't look like the normal color, though. I opened it up. I said, Casey, here, smell this. She smelled it. She's like, ew. And then I turned the bottle around. The front of the bottle has the person's name, everything printed out on it. The back of the bottle, they actually wrote Methadone P. It was their clean urine they were taking to beat the drug test at the methadone clinic. Yes, I mean, it wasn't just an isolated thing, just a few people. This is the city over. But anyhow, I didn't like being addicted to it, and I started noticing like certain people there that were on way too high of a dosage would just sit there like sweating in this like layer of like slimy sweat, and that they'd be so, twacked out of their mind that they'd get a quarter to three, a lazy eye, sometimes like all the way in, sometimes all the way out, and they just sit there and, this look. And I said something about that to somebody, and they're like, dude, you kind of do that sometimes, man. And I'm like, shut up, man, get out of here with that. Like, yeah, unless you've been doing, some uppers, that's kind of what you do. I was like, oh, Lord. Like when you look at people and you think they look rough, and then you're too blind to see yourself. That's probably why a lot of like drug addicts, when I see them in public and stuff, it annoys me way more than ever because like I'm like, man, I probably look like that. So anyway, I was living at this house on Elm Avenue with Frank, the guy from Pakistan that moved the prostitute, the white girl who said, they call me chocolate, yo. I was living at that house, okay? Utter and complete insanity. I was going over and staying a good bit at this apartment, this place called Pebble Creek. Nice apartments. Well, relatively nice. I mean, it's Section 8 too, but I mean, it's nice. You got Section 8, then you got the ghetto. It's one in the ghetto. I mean, it's pretty nice. So anyway, they got two-room apartment, but the one friend of mine, he's in college, so he's not there most of the time. And I ended up moving into that apartment. He basically told me, you can stay here just when I'm home. You got to, have everything ready for me. So basically I had the place clean and keep him lit when he got home. And I had a place to sleep. That's where I got my state charges, where I had a wire worn on me there. I mean, I deserved it. I was selling stuff. So, I mean, that's what it is. But anyhow, I ended up over there for a few days, and I just felt like I was going through it because I was detoxing off it. I just quit cold turkey, not having the aid of anything. And I was still, keeping up the sales. I was selling blow at the time, but I wanted to get off this. So many of my justifications, like for making money and everything else, were just, at that time, were just bad decisions. And I can see that now in retrospect. But anyway, I feel like I was a nuisance. All I could do was just lay there, look pitiful, and I was throwing up all day. And I wasn't one to cry, I wasn't one to complain. I'd just lay there and suffer in silence. Whenever I got to the point of being sick, once I was in full-on sickness, I was not the one to call everybody. I was not the one to go out and rob, steal, any of that. If I got to the sickness point, it was over. Like, I knew I was just stuck. Like, I just was so zapped and just so hopeless, and just the mental depression is equally, if not more bad, than what you physically go through. That's something not enough people talk about. But anyway, I was being honest with, my family about it, saying I want to quit this. I was still selling dope, so it wasn't like I was trying to, live a correct life. But, I mean, they supported that I was trying to quit it. And ended up staying at this. My dad had this idea, just get me out of the place. I didn't take my car with me. He drove me out to this hotel. It's like just, this motel out in Franklin County, which is the country. So went up that motel and I just laid there and watched TV all day. It was when the Sopranos finale happened. I kept watching for the finale. I didn't know I'd watched it 5 times. It was just such a stupid ending, for like one of the best shows of all time, that finale. I kept like, man, where's the finale supposed to have happened? It's getting real good. What's going to happen? Watched it over and over, but just laid there and dealt with that. It was like a week, or it took 5-6 days before I could eat half a honey bun. Oh, I got sickly. And it was at the tail end of it, but I was still going through some stuff. Now, the person I talked about being one of my best friends who's no longer with us, who set me up with the vice, he was texting in the back seat of a car, letting them know where I was going to meet my dealer. And me and him were good friends. I mean, shoot, after that, we stayed friends because I didn't know he told on me. I mean, she's informed on me and everything. I found out they had like a bounty. They had a $2,000 reward to get me arrested, or whatever. I heard it from multiple people that they were offered that. But he was also, he caught a charge. His apartment, the trap apartment, so I talked about I had the one apartment that I was staying in that I paid these people who moved out $20 a day to live in. They had this giant sectional from Aaron's, this TV stand, giant flat screen. But they'd moved out of this apartment. They were finding somewhere else, but they still had a few months left on the lease. I'm giving them $20 a day. Yeah, they took that. Helped them, because they still had to pay for it and everything else. But I was living in that apartment. The apartment across the hall used to be the guy I just spoke on. It used to belong to him, but he no longer was living in it. So it's an empty apartment with a mattress on the floor, a table, and like a TV on the floor in the corner. Okay? So I'd sell in the one apartment, and I'd live in the one apartment. I'd tell people, yeah, just walk in the apartment. I'd be looking through the peephole. They'd walk in the apartment. And then after the door shut, I'd open the door, walk in behind. They'd look at me like, how'd you just appear like that? But, and there was one day that I was sitting there watching through the peephole, and I watched the apartment across the hall get raided. They were looking for me. I stood in front of the toilet for probably 2 hours holding the thing, not knowing whether to flush it or not. Literally looking through a peephole at them looking for me, kicking in a door. But anyhow, that guy from that time, he was running around doing a whole bunch of, there were different people that had different hustles, like they'd find different stuff to peddle off everything else. Like I said, spent most of my 20s in federal prison. This is nothing to advocate or anything like that, but I was just in such a funk from this withdrawal. It was just like I needed some type of a break, and it, of course, I didn't, but I chose to do that. So basically, I was in this hotel, detoxing, but I still had a lot of money. You know what I mean? I still had the money, all the money that I'd been making from hustling and that type of stuff. So there were these things like I never got into much of the whole, e-pill thing. It was everybody I saw that got into it. Back then, okay, fentanyl it wasn't a thing that got put in dope. And I, dealt with many big people bringing it in town and cutting, like major cutting operations. I've helped bag up more than I could ever estimate. But there wasn't fentanyl back then. The only place you ever heard about it was with e-pills. And so I think because back then it was the only place that you'd hear about it. I guess because e-pills, it's the synthetics and they mix stuff with it that they had access to it, and they were making stuff up anyway. I don't know, but people were dropping occasionally from e-pills. So e-pills had this stigma. Anybody who sold them got popped quick. Now there was this guy. He ended up getting he got like 20 years, I believe. And he was making a bunch of money selling them. It was back when Gucci Man had that song, $3 for a pill, it's a damn good deal. And there were these ones that weren't any good that we ended up getting for $3, and then we thought we were Gucci Man because of it, just idiotic stuff like that. Listening to media thinking you're going to be the person in the movie and the song. If you watch most movies that are this type of nature, they don't end happily. I mean, if you watch Blow, look what happened to George Jung. If you watch Requiem for a Dream, my God, look what happened to that. I mean, Belly, all these movies, they don't end good, okay? They usually end pretty rough for the people that are hustling and, the big getting money party and stuff at the start. But there were these ones that had a big word up called G's Up, Hoes Down. And they were these little green ones. And I was just in such a state of pain, just exhausted. Like my body was just so depleted. Like I hadn't eaten. I'd probably eaten a total of maybe 2,000 calories in like 8 or 9 days. Okay, dehydrated, couldn't keep water down. Like just drinking, like I'd have to drink like just drops at a time to keep down. And even then, with nothing on my stomach, it was like The Exorcist. So I've talked about some of my best thinking, meaning my best choices were stupid. But I had that guy who I told you, the one who set me up, who was like my best friend, drive down and bring me a couple of these. I ended up paying him, I think I gave him like $150 to bring me, just a couple of them. He ended up made it worth it. It's about 45 to an hour out. The reason I was staying in this hotel, the reason I didn't have this motel, and the reason I didn't have my car was I wanted to be somewhere that I was away from everything and I couldn't drive the clinic. I wanted to sit here with no options. I wanted to take my options away. And most junkies, even if you do offer to pay them something, they're not going to drive all the way out there. You have to make it super good. So yeah, I went all the way out there for that, and then I kind of went against my own principles by having somebody bring me drugs. At the place where I figured, well, shoot, I don't have a car. I'm all the way out here. I'll ride this out. And yeah, I had him bring that to me, and it wasn't an opiate. But anyway, they come down there, and I'm rough. They can see I'm rough. He's got a few people with him. I ended up going to a rave later that night. I stayed there. But they brought these ones. And, I had never done the pill. I'd done like Molly before, but like it's dangerous because you don't know what's in a pill, especially these days, fentanyl and everything else. But these ones were not normal. They were little, but they had a reputation. And see, it takes so much, MDMA and all this stuff, but like these ones apparently, we used to say they were smacked out or they were cracked out. Smacked out means they had, dope in them, H in them, or fentanyl, something like that. Cracked out means they had speed in them in addition to it. The buffers that they have and they press them into the pill, whatever. These ones apparently, somebody got the bright idea to mix acid in with them. Well, they came over and I did 2 of them, and 15 minutes later, people's faces started looking like they'd be looking just right at me, like square up, but they like if you like stretch my head this way, and I was like, dude, I said, it's only been 15 minutes, something's going on. He's like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, the word is there's acid mixed in. I'm like, I can tell, you should have let me know a little about that, maybe something. And like, oh Lord, so they hung out for another minute. And, I basically told him, I appreciate you, but, I'm just going to stay here, so bye. Like, getting paranoid and everything else, because I'm in an altered state, and I do have my money on me. And, I start getting paranoid thinking somebody's going to rob me. So, anyway, the rest of the night, it put me in this weird place. Like, at these hotels and places like that, I always got paranoid. I'm being too loud. Somebody's going to call the cops on me. So, I got stuck laying in the bed for 3 hours, and I was about 10, 15 foot away from the remote. And I got stuck in this bed with Sex and the City on TV for 3 hours, too scared to get up because I'd make too much noise. Yeah. Oh, that was awful. Terrible, terrible show. Terrible. It's just trash. But I'm stuck there watching this trash because I'm too scared to get up. Yeah. I drank like half a bottle of Southern Comfort, which is the worst drink ever to drink if you don't want to smell like a drunk. Like that liquor just makes you smell like a drunk. You smell like a wino. But anyhow, yeah, I stayed up like that most of that entire night. And then, basically the next day, I'd had my dad come get me and everything else. I ramped the bottle up. I'm still underage. I'm not of drinking age, so I've got the rest of this bottle of Southern Comfort. When you come off of any type of those psychedelics, you're in this warped, fragile state where you're ready to break down and cry, contemplate life, everything else. The fun, what goes up must come down. And once you bought the ticket, you must take the ride. Once you take it, there ain't no reversing out of it. So I took this pill not knowing what was in it. Oh, man. God sent me to the moon. I stayed in bed 3 hours, scared to move to the left or the right. I was like this, take a breath. Yeah, but that was one I figured I'd share with you. I went back to town the day after that. Got right back into stuff. My mom had called me and said something about, this guy she was friends with at the bar said that there was a word from this guy, and the guy who she was talking about was my connection, who was Prince. One of probably the 4 biggest blow dealers in the city. And apparently this guy overheard him talking to somebody else saying, yeah, my man Spence, he got busted. He said, I ain't heard from him in a minute. So I call him. I'm like, nah, man, I ain't get busted. I, made up some stuff. I didn't want to seem like weak because I was coming off of drugs, anything like that. Made up some stuff. Yeah, had some stuff go on, blah, 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 this and that. I'm back now. It's all good, though. And, got back right into the stuff. So I came off of it just to get on something else. That's the point. Getting off one drug, getting on another drug, is something that I figured. Well, it didn't work with opiates. Let's try speed now. Didn't work with speed. Let's try coke. Yeah, I actually started with coke. I started with coke and then I realized, oh, this costs too much money. Okay, switch speed. It's cheaper. Then you get crazy. You start hallucinating. I'd had this boy I'd hallucinate. After I've been up 5 or 6 days, first time I seen this hallucination, I was 15 years old, 14 or 15. First time I stayed up on speed pills, but I looked out. My sister's playhouse had this ladder, this 2-floor playhouse with a window. I saw this little boy, flicking me off. I'm like, you little mother, you're going to get in the playhouse and flick me off? So I ran out there, snatch him up, stick my head, climb up the ladder. You can't open these windows. Ain't nobody in there. I go back inside. I see this little boy again. So I went out there again, and then the third time I started looking, and this hallucination looked like a hologram boy, and he kept disappearing. I kept seeing this little boy. I seen this little white kid, this little blonde-headed white kid, after I've been up 5-6 days on speed over and over again. I've seen him in the ghettos of Baltimore. I've seen him, I've seen him in all these places after I've been up about 5 or 6 days. I hallucinate him. So I just gave him a name. I called him Billy. I said, when I start seeing Billy, it's time to lay it down for a minute. So anyway, yeah, it's just something I figured.